Is Tesla also working on a large language model? Elon Musk hints that might be the case. Plus, Tesla repairs are 10 times cheaper and 3 times faster than legacy auto. If you have Tesla's full self-driving beta, you can actually transfer the license this quarter, and Twitter will soon no longer exist. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I want to start with the repair issue that Lars talked about during the Q3 earnings report. And if you don't know the context of this, many media sources over the years have claimed that Teslas are just too expensive to repair with the single piece casting. So even if it's just like a fender bender or something, you have to write off the entire car. But Lars Moravy, vice president of vehicle engineering at Tesla, took this head on and said that Teslas are actually 10 times cheaper and 3 times faster to repair than traditional vehicles. How is that possible? I'm not exactly sure, but that is a claim that he made. And I think it's worth pointing that out because this is something that runs counter to the standard argument that Teslas are basically impossible to repair. So if they get damaged at all, even relatively minor damage, aside from just, surface damage, but if there's any type of frame damage whatsoever, that the cars basically have to be totaled out. Now, part of this could be that we're talking about older vehicles versus newer ones. Obviously, the newer the vehicle, the more advanced their manufacturing techniques. But you have to remember that Tesla has talked about this over and over again over the years, how they get immediate feedback because, of course, they have a lot of data sources on their car, not just the cameras and stuff, but they know when the vehicle gets damaged, exactly how it's damaged. And especially now that Tesla has its own insurance wing, they see exactly how the repairs have to function when the vehicles have to be repaired. So they have a lot of insight into this, and they have a direct reason to try to make these vehicles as simple and inexpensive to repair as possible. Because, of course, if they're running their own insurance company, they really want to save money on that. And of course, it's good for everybody. It's good for Tesla itself, good for the customers, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know exactly how it's 10 times faster and 3 times cheaper, but Lars is a very intelligent guy, and I don't think he's lying about this. So we have to take that at face value. And so I think we have a valid counter argument to the standard claim that Teslas are just too expensive to repair. Second, let's talk about Twitter disappearing in the form of it becoming X for real now. Around midnight on the 22nd, 23rd of July, Elon Musk started tweeting out a whole bunch of stuff about how Twitter was going away for real, and he asked for X logos for people to post those and said if one is good enough, he would actually change the logo of Twitter X to that logo today as I record this, which is Sunday. You'll see this on Monday, of course, so it'll be a little bit later than that, but one never knows. I put out 3 different varieties of X's for him, and I'll show those on top of this video. So if you happen to like any of them, make sure you pass that on to Elon and let him know. But anyway, this is not at all unexpected news because, Musk has talked about ever since purchasing it and creating the X holding corporation that Twitter is now under, that Twitter was going to disappear eventually. The big question on everyone's mind is, what are tweets going to be called from now on? And that is an open question. So if you have thoughts about that, let me know that in the comments as well. Are they going to be Jeets now or Yeets or something? I have no idea. Back to Tesla. I have just a little bit of news on full self-driving beta. Many people over the years have said that what they want to be able to do is transfer their full self-driving license from one Tesla to another as they purchase other Teslas. Well, the deal is that you can do that now. The catch is that you only have until, I believe, September 30th to do that. So they said Q3 of 2023, so I assume that ends on September 30th. Anyway, that is the time window for you to trade in your vehicle, get a new vehicle, and trade over your full self-driving. It's a limited term deal, but if it happens to fit your timing, that would be great. I actually wish that it was about a year or two later because it would be pretty kick-ass if we could purchase the Cybertruck, which we got full self-driving for $7 grand on. I assume Tesla will respect that price since they said you would lock it in when you do that. And what we could do is then transfer our full self-driving from our Model Y to our Model 3 and then sell the Model Y to replace it with the Cybertruck, and we would have 2 cars with full self-driving. But I don't believe that's going to happen. And of course, many people feel like Q3. The reason why it's a time-limited deal is that the Model 3 Project Highland is coming out in Q4 more than likely now, I would take a guess. And also the Cybertruck will start, serious production in Q4 and then into next year, into 2024. So they're probably trying to push these sales right now while it makes more sense, and they don't want people transferring licenses once these new vehicles, these refreshed or brand new vehicles come out. So that's just a guess, it's speculation, but that seems to be a consensus speculation on the internets. And speaking of speculation, finally, let's take a look at this tweet from Stephen Mark Ryan and especially Elon Musk's response to it. So early morning on July 23rd, Stephen Mark Ryan posted, "Had a fun conversation with ChatGPT. I fed it Tesla's historical profits, asked for 30-year estimates. It got to almost $10 quadrillion and said, quote, impossible because world GDP is less." I'm sure that ChatGPT did not say cuz CUZ. But anyway, he's paraphrasing here. So I asked it, what if bots expand world GDP? And it said, "Jolly good point, sir." Again, I'm assuming that that's not really what it said. And then he said the actual conversation was much longer, but this gives you the gist of what happened in it. So first of all, that's a really interesting thing. I'd never thought of feeding ChatGPT like a stock market chart or something, prices for the past several years or something for any company and asking it its opinion. Not that I would trust it, but it's just an interesting thought experiment. Anyway, the important part here is what Elon Musk responded to. He said, "Now ask the Tesla AI." And I'll just throw my response in real quick. Any thoughts on when this might be available? I'm imagining a deep conversation with my Model Y on the way to work as it drives me there entirely on its own. The future will be geeky. But back to Elon's response here. Now ask the Tesla AI. So initially I thought to myself, well, clearly this is XAI and their new large language model they're working on, but it says Tesla AI. And that made me start to wonder about this. I was like, okay, so we have Tesla full self-driving, right? It's a robot. It drives the car around. And we have Optimus, and Optimus also has the full self-driving computer inside it. But what this is indicating to me, and again, this is sort of a hiding in plain sight thing, wouldn't be that surprising if Tesla is working on a large language model of their own. And you might ask, why would they bother to do something like this? Because, full self-driving doesn't necessarily need a large language model, but Optimus in particular really does. If you as a human are going to communicate with that robot, you want to be able to do it in as natural a manner as possible. In other words, again, I'll just use the beer thing. Everybody always uses that example, but you're sitting in the living room and you're like, "Oh, go get me a beer." And the robot has to natural language process that, has to figure out what that means. Maybe it can then interact with you and ask a question, something like, which type of beer do you want? And then you tell it which one, and then it navigates to the kitchen. It opens up the refrigerator, finds that type of beer, maybe opens it for you if you need a bottle opener and brings it back to you. And maybe it brings a glass too. Maybe it asks calls out from the kitchen, like, "Do you want a glass with that?" or something, right? So that's the sort of thing where you would have a natural language interface with a robot that would be much more natural and easy than having to do commands in a very specified sort of computerized sort of way. And so I think that makes a lot of sense that Tesla would be working on a large language model. I've actually mentioned this before in previous episodes, but this gives evidence that they may be working on something, or maybe they've gotten somewhere with this large language model, that it's actually reasonably deep, right? It has a reasonable amount of world knowledge, universal knowledge. It has an understanding of humans. After all, we're talking about a company with major compute resources and a lot of really, really intelligent AI, researchers, including ones that have worked on large language models before. So it's the kind of thing that they could almost do as a weekend project to build a large language model. And then, of course, they could have access to not just the general repositories of data, but if they work out a deal with Twitter/X, they might get access to all of these tweets and everything. So they could have access to a lot of data, a lot of compute. They obviously have that. And of course, a lot of very intelligent and motivated AI researchers. So this is the kind of thing that they could have been working on for a while. And if they have those kinds of resources, it probably wouldn't take them that long to develop a large language model, because honestly, those things are way simpler than doing full self-driving. So this is the kind of side project that they could have worked on. And they're like, "Oh, this actually works better than we thought." And it really might not be that far-fetched in version 12 or 12.5 of Tesla's full self-driving software that you might be able to have a conversation with your car. In other words, you would be able to ask it in a natural language way to find me a good restaurant, and then it would ask you questions like, "Well, you're interested in Thai, or what kind of food you're interested," whatever. You tell it that. So you go to a new city, you don't know where to go, or quite frankly, you're in your city that you always live in, but you'd like to find a new restaurant, and you would have a conversation with the car rather than having to know something like that already. The car could then, once it figures out the answer to the question, of course, interface with Tesla's standard navigation services and give you the location, and the car would drive you there. And then, as I said in my response, you could actually have a conversation with the Tesla as you were driving, while you were doing that. So it would entertain you, keep you company, be a traveling companion. And of course, when the Tesla bot becomes available, if there's a kind of memory associated with this, like any kind of personalized version of this AI, you could have that transferred over to Optimus, to the Tesla bot, and be able to utilize that large language model with some knowledge of you already. So this could be the kind of thing where Tesla creates kind of an AI ecosystem. People have talked about AI ecosystems before. They've talked about AI OSs before. They've said like get rid of like the Mac OS and the Windows OS and create an operating system based on artificial intelligence. That might be a little bit far for Tesla right now, but certainly a number of integrated AI apps that are helping you as a person to interact with the world in a physical manner, like ChatGPT does in a verbal manner, that would be pretty impressive stuff. So again, currently it could just be its own little entity, a large language model, but this could expand into other things. Remember multimodality. We have something like ChatGPT and others that now are able to interact with images and video, input and output of that kind of stuff. So we're getting multimodality, but what we're missing is the real world multimodality. And what does Tesla have? Well, they have access to the real world through their robots. So we could be talking about multimodality that actually is interacting with reality, not just digital stuff. And that could be profound. So we might be looking at an initial hint here of an expansion. So full self-driving is its own thing, and that is an incredibly difficult and challenging task to overcome for Tesla's AI team. But we could expand that. Once you get that as sort of a kernel, you can tack on a large language model and you can start training this all end to end. I mean, we're talking end to end to end. We're talking about an understanding the world in a linguistic sort of conscious manner, similar to what LLMs do. And we're also talking about an understanding of the actual physical world from the full self-driving data and from Optimus and from the vehicles. And so rather than something like ChatGPT becoming the first AGI, it really could be a Tesla. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and Elon's tweet has made me go like, oh, they really are working on this. I've been thinking about the fact that I believe that Tesla's full self-driving will win the race to some sort of level of consciousness and agency before any large language model does, precisely because, number one, it's just more complicated because it has to interact with the real world. But number two, because it has to physically interact with the world, it gives it a leg up in understanding physical reality and humans, the way that we act, the way that we interact. And if you can sort of not just like kind of plug into, but basically work a large language model into that end-to-end type of training that I've talked about in previous videos, you can check one of those out up here if you're interested. But anyway, if you integrate that in a real way into this full self-driving thing or full self-robotics thing, because again, Optimus is going to have this too. If you can get that fully integrated, this is something that will be world-changing. It's going to be something that no one else can do besides Tesla, because nobody else has the data. And it's something that I believe Elon just threw out there, and I don't think anybody's really picked up on it. I mean, it's got like 44,000 views as I record this. Now, I'm sure that's going to increase and increase and increase, but that's nothing compared to what I think the profundity of this statement is. So I think that people should be watching this space. They need to be paying attention to this. It's possible that XAI may get involved in this at some point, but I think that Tesla might have their own entire little ecosystem built out. And if they do, I think they really are going to win the race to artificial general intelligence. And that's something that is profoundly important and potentially world-changing. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking, and let me know what you think about these possibilities. I've really become firmly convinced that Tesla is going to win the race to artificial general intelligence, and this is actually one of the reasons why Elon Musk has pushed this so far, because I think he wants to be the one through either XAI and or Tesla to get there first, to be able to drive the direction of AGI and hopefully create a singularity where we come out the other side in a good way rather than a bad way. So I think that this is something that he feels is existentially important and important enough to devote massive resources to through Tesla and XAI, of course. And while I might be overstating the case a little bit on Tesla's front in the near term, I do think that they have some sort of large language model that at least will be able to be attached to the front end of Optimus or Tesla to be able to interact with it more easily, but that the vision could be over time to build out an entire end-to-end thing with a large language model built into the full self-driving model. That could be a little ways away, but I think that that is destined to happen. And again, I think Tesla is destined to win this race. And of course, their drive to hit 100 exaflops also leads into that. And I think under the circumstances with the competition, that's actually a good thing. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please do like it so YouTube's algorithm will serve it to more people. And also consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon, my YouTube channel members, and of course, my Twitter subscribers. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel in any way that you can. And of course, if you want to join any of these, just check out the links in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a new Tesla, a solar roof, a power wall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.